Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Stuart Stevenson. I'm the head of product for Clever Dynamics, and today I have the pleasure in showing you how Clever MES can help meet your customers' shop floor requirements for manufacturing. So we're obviously here to talk about manufacturing today, and specifically why we believe our solution helps you deliver the requirements for those customers in the manufacturing industry. But alongside this, I want to spend a few minutes touching on our background and how we aim to help our partners implement our products successfully. So who are we? Well, for those of you that don't know, Clever Dynamics is a UK-based ISV founded over 10 years ago, and we focus on building solutions for Business Central. Our founding organisation is actually over 30 years old, still growing, and focuses within the manufacturing and distribution space. Essentially, we've built that knowledge that lets us talk the language of those industries, and furthermore, build the solutions that suit real-world challenges, with our core objective being to bridge the gap whilst increasing efficiency. As an ISV, we have a mission to support partners and customers with a pure belief that your success matches our success. So based on the knowledge that we've gained over the many years working with manufacturers, we produced a host of functionality across our manufacturing apps that we believe fulfill gaps across the width and depth of Business Central, and some of the things we believe that Business Central's manufacturing module will never likely solve. Biggest pain points that we hear are that disconnect between the shop floor and the Business Central system that's running the business. We also hear of the lack of process control, where people can do or change things in Business Central without any authorization to do so from the people that should be making the decision. Now, because data is not captured in real time, we generally don't see the problems as they're occurring, and that could lead to decisions being made days or weeks after that point at which they really should have been. And all of this gives us a lack of cost visibility. So for people doing more than simple manufacturing, some of these issues can spiral out of control quite quickly. Having said that, Business Central has provided a framework that we've built on, but it does just hold data. Clever Dynamics provides real solutions across all of our apps which play nicely together, giving you greater control, efficiency, and cost savings, and for you guys as partners, fewer headaches during the implementation process. So Business Central is a great start for manufacturers, but for those that need more than basic data capture, it's not the full solution. Today, obviously, we're going to focus on Clever MES, but I'd also like to talk about some of the other apps that we have. Now, Clever MES is our shop floor solution, allowing us to capture data in real time without paperwork and without any excuses. So we get accuracy of data and efficiency straight from the manufacturing environment. But alongside MES, we also have things such as Manufacturing Plus. Now this app almost has some additional tools that are like brains for Business Central for manufacturers. So we have engineering change control in there, we have tooling capabilities, we have byproduct features, and we also have some visualizations that allow businesses to see a little bit more of what's going on when it's going on. And we also have Clever Quality in the mix. And for manufacturing companies, our solution here is actually allowing you to capture tests, non-conformances throughout the supply chain. But furthermore, we can perform in-process checks or equipment or calibration checks, therefore making sure that those things you're using in the manufacturing environment are configured correctly and therefore doing their job as they should be. We also have a host of other apps that I won't go into detail, but all of these things basically allow for end-to-end harmony throughout the business process. And the key thing here is that for you guys as partners, these allow you to tackle complex needs, to win new deals, all while we work in the background, improving the products for tomorrow's needs. And with that said, I imagine you're pretty fed up of me talking about solutions and want to see what functionality you'll be able to offer your customers. But first, let's set the scene. So ForgeWorks Engineering are a manufacturing company that make industrial pumps. Within the manufacturing plant, they use tools to machine the cast to the right fit and finish, and for the assembly of the final product. Other materials are purchased, and they complete a two-stage process of machining and assembly. The tools need to be tracked, and the metal swarf that's produced from the machining process also needs to be accounted for, as it can be sold as scrap or recycled. So during the demo, I'm going to be aiming to show you how we can use Business Central with Clever Dynamics to control real business requirements that occur every day in manufacturing companies. We'll start with production orders that are ready for the shop floor, and I'll demonstrate how using Clever MES we can accurately capture time and materials for the production order. Along the way, I'll show you how we can manage some exceptions, integrate to tooling, and capture the output of byproducts. It should be noted that some of the features I will show today are actually from our Manufacturing Plus product. This enables us to define and handle more complex manufacturing requirements, but again, is integrated with the Clever MES solution. I'll point these things out as we go through the demo, and I won't go into depth on how these things work, but I think it's nice to show you how Clever MES is able to work with standard Business Central or the clever manufacturing capabilities that we've built. And with that said, let's now switch to Business Central and get this show on the road. So here in Business Central, I just think it's worth giving you a quick overview of some of the kind of default setup that you're able to control with Clever MES. So in our MES screen, alongside some of the kind of principal building blocks of MES, we have some kind of logical decision-making kind of flags that let you basically configure the user interface based on the needs of the customer and their business. So we can do such things as deciding whether we allow scrap to be recorded on the device. We can choose whether we want to use byproducts. And I'll show you an example of using the Manufacturing Plus byproducts during one of the demos in a little while. We also control things like being able to allow the operator to see the posted transactions. So some companies like to ensure there's a thorough process for reversal of any mistakes, whereas we found other customers want the operators to have full control and to be able to very quickly remedy any, erroneous stock transactions whilst they're working. Again, making sure that the information is real time, all of the time, and the inventory values and what we're holding on stock is as correct as can be known. Here also we can decide whether we want to show the tooling integration that we have with Clever Manufacturing Plus, allowing the operator on the shop floor to check out and check back in the tools as they need to. A couple of other things here. We've got the control of whether we show flushed components on the device itself. Again, operators obviously don't have to confirm quantities of back flushed or forward flushed materials, but you might want to show them what the materials they should have and should be using are whilst they're at the relevant shop floor activity. And we also have some kind of operator controls and logic here that allow us to control how an operator logs in, whether they simply select their name from a set of tiles, or whether they have to provide an access code, such as they could have an employee badge, they could scan their barcode. And again, these things you can set up in Business Central, and that will be then adhered to on the device. And we can do things like controlling how time and cost is posted, and we can do that for machine centers as well. So we can, tell the system whether we want to post actual cost or we want to post the cost as are represented on a production order routing. Again, some businesses don't like to kind of post the costs for minor differences because obviously they could implement standard cost variances. But the device itself will still give you a true, time analysis. So it's very flexible, essentially. And things we haven't got set up today, and I won't show you, is things like your scale integration. We do have an app called Clever Print Node, which not only controls access to on-premise printers via SaaS platforms, but as part of that, actually, you can integrate to weigh scales. So these could be used on the MES screen to either capture the component weights or output weights. Again, it's available from both sides. On the MES setup screen, you do also have access to things like the list of operators that you wish to set up. And again, here you can then control who those operators are, whether you want to post the cost, and actually their kind of hourly rates you can then deduce into the runtime unit of measure so that you can make sure you're capturing the correct and accurate cost. Okay, so let's take a look at the production orders, and I'm just going to open some release production orders. Now I have prepared and processed the warehouse transactions that I actually need to ensure that the stock is in the right place. Obviously today we're not looking at the full warehouse process, so the stock is where it needs to be. But let's just take a quick look. We have essentially two types of production order that we will be processing today. The first of which being the pump casing that we'll need for our industrial pump. And this is the process whereby what we'll do is to take our cast blank and we'll machine that to obviously turn it into a casing to use for our pump. Now, essentially, the information we're seeing here is not any different to what you would see in standard Business Central. We do have some additional attributes that just help manage the routing process through the MES devices, so we can tell when each part of the process setup and the normal runtime is complete. But there's nothing that differs from what the Business Central user has to do to actually create or process production orders through the warehouse in readiness. We do have some extra information here that we show as part of the Manufacturing Plus app that actually just lets us know the status of a current operation, so where is that production order. But again, this is just some visual cues really. And the other thing we do have is our byproducts, which are part of Manufacturing Plus, so that we're able to actually configure the system so that it knows what potential byproducts to expect to be created from a process. And again, these things tie through the process of routing link codes so that we can ensure that the user on the shop floor sees the relevant information based on the process that they're actually performing. So that's our pump casing, and just as a quick overview of the actual finished product for our industrial pump, we can see here that this pump is actually consuming the pump casing that comes from our machining task, alongside a host of other component materials. And I did just want to digress a little and talk about how Manufacturing Plus can actually help here and manage shortages. So we can see that this seal kit is actually not available on inventory. But what we can do as a production planner, for instance, is that we can review our production order shortages as a regular task. Okay, so we can get an overview for our components, and we can see for any that are actually short, we can see what production orders they belong to. And this is not us having to review production order by production order and check along the component list and see if anything's not there. This is us simply saying, show me shortages that I currently have, and we can filter by location, etc. And for this particular item here, I can actually see, if there was any availability coming soon. Maybe we did have purchase orders set up for it, but fundamentally, what I can also do is to come along and I can view any substitutions that might exist. So this tells me that there is another item that I can use instead. And so if I really want to perform this production order today, as I do for the demo, I need to make a change here. And this is now where I'm going to show you a bit of functionality that we have in Manufacturing Plus that I think really closes the net on some of the Wild West production order functionality of Business Central, and endorses a bit of process workflow, essentially. And that's the fact that we have engineering change control. And we can actually run a change control across different sources. So it could be from an item directly, it could be from a production BOM or from a routing, but we can also do it directly against a production order. And that's what I'm just going to do here now. So let's come to one of those production orders. And I could have got to this from the shortage list just to let you know as well, but I just want to show you it from here. And what we can do is we can actually come along and we can create an engineering change request from the production order. Like I say, if you wanted to make a permanent change because you weren't going to have that item ever on hand, you could have done this from the production BOM, and it would have then gone and changed all of the associated documents for that production BOM as well, and it would even create new versions of production BOMs. But here and now, let's just do it as a one-off against the production order. And actually, for our seal here, I can see that we've got substitutes available as well from here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a bit of functionality here that lets me select a different item substitute. And I'll simply select the new shaft seal kit. And you can see that it's got the change type as well. So it's saying we're going to remove one of the items and we're going to add the other. You'll also notice we can add other lines to this, other byproducts. We can change operations if we wanted to. We could switch the machines that they were running on. All of these things are quite possible, and it's really nice and it's controlled. Now, for the purpose of this demo, I'm actually just going to come along and register this change, but in reality, you'd probably go through a workflow process. And again, this is all implemented within Business Central using workflow functionality so that you can control this process and let the person that's responsible for making the decision approve the change that you're about to make. And also, just whilst we're here, if we look at the statistics, you can also see the impact of the change that we're proposing to make. So here we've actually got a change to our material costs, and it's a 3% increase. It's £30 essentially, and all of this information, is then kind of coming through to a cost per unit where we can see the impact of what we're about to do. So let's implement this change. And what we'll find out is that we have our new seal item on the component. So with that being said, I think it's now time to go and take a look at the actual Clever MES interface. So now I'm just opened Clever MES, which is a web-based application. This essentially means that you can deploy it on tablets or other ruggedized devices, or maybe even screens inside waterproof enclosures, depending on the type of environment that you're working with. But what happens is, essentially, the MES solution is wanting to take in certain pieces of information. And that depends on the MES setup that we took a quick look at earlier. For our first sort of run through here, what you'll see is that I've actually opened up the machining device, and I'm asked to confirm who I am as an operator. If you had multiple operators here, you'd obviously get multiple tiles, and this is based on, again, the setup of operators to certain devices within Business Central. If we were using access codes, then I'd be asked, to scan my staff login or to enter a code just to confirm who I am in a different way. So I'm going to choose my operator, and I'm going to press the next button. And essentially what I now see is the information that is available for this device. And I can see I've got a machining works order that I need to start, and I have information of when should I start this job, when is it expected to end, how many are available to start, and this is all tied to logic that we have in Clever MES, that will enable us to run jobs in serial and parallel just as you can in Business Central, and it will push jobs into the next part of the process where the routing defines it should do so. So let's just select our pump casing, and we'll come into the next screen. So here, once we've selected who we are and the job, it's now ready to start transacting. And we can see up on our screen here that we identify the different time types, so whether it's setup time or runtime, again, bound to standard Business Central routing setup. And I can see all the details of the job and what this process is doing. For my pump casings, essentially I have one process. So let's just start the setup time of the machining process. And obviously in reality what I'd be doing here potentially is to load the relevant tools into the machines. Maybe I'd be putting my raw materials into the job and confirming what I've loaded. So let's take a look. Firstly, let's go into the tools. And tools are part of Clever Manufacturing Plus that I spoke about before, and we've used already for the engineering change control. But what I can see here is the relevant tools that I need to put onto this machine in order to complete the task. And we can see the status of the tools. So if they were issued, we'd see that they weren't available, for instance. And as part of Clever MES and Manufacturing Plus, we can also do things like automatic usage and assumed installation of tools. But for now, I'm just going to select both of my tools, and I'm going to check them out to my job. And that means that the usage of these tools will be tracked automatically for us, ensuring that we know when tools are used. We can track them in a sequence of manufacturing or maybe even lifetime schedules. So for this particular process here, I can also confirm my components, and I will load my steel cast blank item in as a setup process before we then confirm the runtime and obviously output of my job. On the component screen, we can see not only what's remaining or expected to be consumed, but if we've got warehouse processes that were picking certain stock, or we'd assigned relevant lot tracking or serial tracking to be used for this job, we would also see that here. If we didn't, we could obviously confirm that as we're doing the job. You'll notice here as well we have kind of container numbers, which is part of one of our other applications. I'm not using that today, but I just thought I'd highlight what those fields were in case you're wondering. And then we have a quantity to post. And obviously if we were consuming things in part, we could adjust the quantities. If we had any wedge scanners, for instance, we could take readings from a scan as well into this box. But what I'll do for now is I will simply post the consumption of the material at this point. And obviously once I've confirmed that the machine is set up, then I can stop it. And one thing just to point out here is obviously I've got my operator logged into this job. I can add and remove operators from production order jobs as I need to, and the time that they're recorded onto the job will also be tracked and posted into Business Central. But let's just stop our setup time, and I'll talk a little bit on reason codes a little bit later in the different stop times, but for now I'm just going to say that the setup time has been done and say OK. So now the job moves on to the running time, and I'll just start that. And obviously depending on the type of job you're doing, depends on the operators, depends on the people needed, and they can be added just as before. But also, essentially what we now have is the fact of the output quantity. Okay, so we can confirm the output simply by entering our quantity into the output quantity and confirming output. We could obviously again be using a wedge scanner or something akin to that will take the known quantity and feed it into MES. For now, I will just confirm the quantity of 8, and again I could do this partially. I can also set batch sizes as well into here if I wanted to. For now I'm just keeping it simple and keying the information in. But having pressed output, that will have now gone to Business Central, and it will have confirmed that I've got the pump casings on inventory. Okay, so in real time, as I'm doing things on the shop floor, my inventory levels are being updated in Business Central, as you would expect if you had to record a journal manually. The other thing I just wanted to do here is to identify the byproduct functionality we have. And again, byproducts are a part of Clever MES or Clever Manufacturing Plus. And there's a couple of differences I won't go into the detail of today, but I just wanted to kind of tell you that with the latter Manufacturing Plus solution, we have more complex kind of capabilities that we can do with byproducts. But for now, I'm just going to confirm a quantity of 2 for my metal swarf, and I'm going to post that. And that will then give me inventory of my byproduct. Okay. If you were simply wanting to record things like scrap, we can do that with Clever MES, but I'm not going to today. But that would be scrap in a sense of Standard Business Central's scrap quantity on capacity ledgers, okay, which is more informational purposes rather than transactional. So I'm going to come along now and I'm going to complete my job. But first, I'm just going to check back my tools. Okay, so I'm going to check them in so that they're now available for use by another operator or another production order. Okay. And I'm just going to come through and stop this process. Again, I'm going to just keep it simple for now, and I'll show you some of these other codes in action when we look at the assembly process. So production order is complete, and essentially what that will do is it will firm up the posting of capacity, the runtime for the machine, for operators where relevant, and it will then take me back to my first screen where the machine is ready, but I need to log in as an operator because there aren't any more production orders relevant for this machine at this point in time. So let's now switch into our assembly process. We've obviously got our cast still, okay, and now what we want to go is make our pump. Again, what we've got here really is a different device that will be in a different place potentially within your manufacturing environment, but Clever MES wants the same type of information. So quickly going through here, I'm just going to choose the assembly technician, and this time I see a number of different jobs which are on my industrial pumps. The process, however, is the same as we saw in the machining process. So I'm going to select the first line, and I'm going to go into this process here. As before, we've got our setup time, we've got our order information, we've got a description of the product, and we've got our routing assemble components process ready to start. So let's start this in the same way that we did previously. And the screen's gone green. We know we are running at this point in time, and time is being tracked. Now, I just wanted to show that we can do the same types of things as before, but we've also got a couple of other features here. Firstly, we've got an instruction. So this allows me to embed instructions for certain routing processes, upload them into Business Central, but allow them to be available to the operators on the shop floor. Here I've got a simple diagram showing how my industrial pump fits together, but this could be a multi-page PDF document with step-by-step instructions that are needed by people when working on the shop floor. And again, it's embedded into the same user interface, so people aren't having to go and open folders of information elsewhere that are stored on servers or local machines. I'll just close that. What we can also do is have notes on the MES, and these can work in conjunction with our Clever Comments solution, or they can just be available for you to let operators make notes. Now, again, the Clever Comments integration will allow for rich text. I haven't got the example here today, but all of these things can be deployed from Business Central, but fundamentally stored back inside of Business Central against the production order as well. But as I said before, the processes are just similar to what we've seen already. So if I have any tools, for instance, I've got an assembly fixture here, I can come and check that out to my job, and then I can carry on with my process. Now, what I'm going to do here is to demonstrate a stop, but for a different reason. So before, as I mentioned, we have certain reserve keywords that will move the job on to the next stage from setup time to runtime and runtime to finish, essentially. But we could also have a stop on the shop floor for different reasons. These could be planned, where I'm going on a break, or they could be unplanned, where a machine is faulty. So just taking a quick example here, a broken machine. I can choose that, and my screen will actually go red. And what I can see is a couple of additional things now on the MES. One is that we have a stop time being counted for. Okay, so if I'm looking at this, I can come along as a supervisor and see how long this machine has not been running for. Obviously, it's gone bold red in color as well, so I could potentially glance from across the shop floor and highlight, with just a visual check that there's something not quite right at this production area. But also I can have the ability here to exit from the job, because the reality of a broken machine may be that I won't be able to complete what I had planned to complete, on this device. And essentially the exit allows me to remove the link of this production order to this machine and device so that I can move it and run the job somewhere else. I won't exit now, I'll just restart. And again, I can confirm the true stop reason code at this point as well. So I'll just confirm it as the broken machine, that's what it was. As another instance, I will just show you a stop for a planned break. And simply in this case, the screen goes amber. We're aware there's a visual cue that the machine isn't running, but it's a known reason for not being, in process. Again, I've got my counter here, clocking up the time, but this time I don't have the exit code. Okay, so it's a planned break. The intention is to come back to restart the machine to carry on working. I'm just going to start it again, and this time it was planned. I don't need to confirm the reason that it was stopped. Okay, but for now, I'm going to just end my setup time. Okay, and I'll start the runtime. So as we saw on machining, it's exactly the same types of concepts. We're just applying to a different type of job. But on our component screen here, I can see something else. And what we're seeing at the bottom section is actually the list of components that we'll need for the job, but which are backflashed. Okay, so I don't need to confirm backflashed items as the operator. They will happen in relation to the process that we're running, and Clever MES, adheres to routing link code rules. So it will consume and it will show on the MES the relevant components in relation to the relevant process. But what I do have to confirm is my machine casing. Okay, so in this instance here, I can come along and I can post that, and that would immediately posted the consumption of that, which I can see in my posted components. And again here, I can then carry on with my job. I can confirm my output here. So I've got my output for 5. Again, I'll just confirm that. We can see that there's now 5 that are complete. Bear in mind, this is just the assembly process. I still have to complete testing before this item will actually be officially in stock. But essentially, this is saying this process is complete and my testing process can continue. But what I'll do is I will just now come along here and check for any byproducts. At this point in time, I'm not actually going to consume or output this byproduct. Okay, for this job, I won't produce this until the testing stage. So I'm not going to do that right now. But what I could do, if I wanted to, is if I had any corrections to make, I could actually come into my posted consumption screen and I'm able to actually make adjustments here. So if, for instance, I'd consumed the incorrect quantity, I can actually reverse the usage of my components. Now, if I go through this process, just as an example, what that's then done, again, if I look in my posted components, is that we've got 4 now that have been consumed. But importantly, back on the component screen, I've now got an additional component that I actually need to post. And I'll just do that as well, just to get back to where we actually were. So let's now come along and let's stop. And we'll say we've finished this process. And now, after having done assembly, we have a final process to do, which is to test our industrial pump to make sure it works and can go into stock and be sold as an item to a customer. So again, now working on a different device, running the test process, I'm asked for the same type of information. And we can see actually we've only got one job here, which is our industrial pump 75mm, whereas on our assembly process or our assembly device, we had the 3 production orders. And this is because Clever MES is tracking through the routing process what is actually available to start. And because I've produced 5, I can start the last part of this production order to actually confirm the assembly of and the relevant working testability of our items. That came up because I haven't selected this line, but let's just press it again. And in this one, we can actually see I don't have any setup time. So my testing process is pretty simple. Bring it to a test bench. The engineer will then test. So again, let's just start this. Now, if I look at components here, I have my pump motors that will only get used at this point in time. Okay, so if the testing process failed, I do not want to, have consumed raw material until I know that this industrial pump works. So my test engineer will come, they will do the testing, and only at that point will say, yes, we've used 5 of these. They're no longer in raw material inventory. They are part of the finished goods. So again, I'm just going to post my components, and I will actually confirm my byproducts for this. Let's just say I've got a couple of litres of test fluid that I've got as a byproduct of the testing process, which I can then reuse. Okay, and fundamentally the key difference here is that we've now got another button for output tracking. So if my output items are lot tracked or serial tracked or container tracked, I can confirm and assign the relevant information against my final output. Okay, my other processes that went through the manufacturing kind of journey to actually produce my pump didn't need me to track that final output number until I know I've got the finished goods. So let's just do that. And you'll see here, I can key in an output number or the lot number, sorry, if it was predefined, but I can also use number series if I've got Business Central set up to do such a thing. And that will go and get me the lot number automatically, and it will save it here so I know what lot I'm working on. And now I'm just going to confirm the output quantity. Okay, so I've finished those, and I will now be able to see what I've produced from this process within Clever MES. Again, if I had made any mistakes or I needed to, write an item off after the event, I could come along here and reverse the output. Now, I'm not going to do that right now, but it works in exactly the same way as the reversal of the consumption did. Okay, and really that's kind of MES in a nutshell. It's the same type of operations being done time and time again on our different jobs with an intelligence between, what materials do I need, what output items am I producing at the relevant points in time, and a true costing of time because it's being tracked as it's happening in real time. So all of these costs now, when I post them, and I'm just going to finish this job, will be posted back against the relevant production orders, incurring then costs into the finished products within Business Central. So let's just jump back into Business Central, and we'll just take one of the production orders we've just processed. And here, what we can see is that the MES processes have been marked as complete, and these were updated as and when we posted the information. We can also actually see starting and ending dates for our production order routing lines. So that's again tracked in relation to when events really happened. And we've also got all of the normal transactions that you would have, had you been posting after the event using a production journal. So we can see our pumps that we've produced, we can see the recovered test fluid, and we can see the components, the 5 motors that we manually consumed, as well as the backflush materials that we saw as material items on the MES, but which we didn't have to manually post. Alongside the items, we can obviously see capacity. So here, the system tracking time. And actually in this current environment, I've got certain, labor elements turned on and off for cost posting and others turned on. So whilst we were tracking machine and labor, only certain sides of those are actually being posted. And finally, with the MES device, we obviously have a device log for each of our routing processes. So we can therefore get a track of when things were stopped and started, and we can see that for the different processes. So here you'll actually see the examples where I actually stopped the machine due to the faulty reason code, and also with the planned stop for the break. All of this information you can obviously use to report upon and to capture downtime across a period, for instance, on certain machines, as well as therefore looking at any need for maintenance across your machine centers. And what we also have is the tool ledgers, and this is where we're using Manufacturing Plus in relation to Clever MES to track the usage of any tools. So I hope you like what you've just seen during that demo, and I hope you're thinking of how you can take advantage of what we at Clever Dynamics have built for both your existing but also for new customers. From my own perspective, although I'm a little biased, I hope you can see how Clever MES is powerful on its own, but transformational when combined with the Clever Manufacturing suite of products. For you as a partner, I believe it enables you to implement MES for both simple and complex manufacturing requirements, ensuring that the information is real-time all of the time, and that the customers have much greater control of their manufacturing processes when you compare this with using Business Central on its own. Before I move into the final part of the presentation today, which is to talk about how we can support our partners, I thought I'd just show you a brief overview of some exciting changes that we're currently working on and are going to bring to our products for both partners and customers in the near future. So, our biggest change, and one that we've been working on for well over a year now, and we hope to have released in the next couple of months, is a new Android-based modern user interface for Clever MES. This will have improved usability, but also enhanced capabilities. We're looking at being able to integrate with IoT devices to capture information in the production environment autonomously, and other things like, intelligent barcode scanning solutions, so that we can capture information intelligently and, more importantly, much faster than ever before. Outside of MES, we're looking at enhanced byproduct costing capabilities, therefore allowing companies that need to use byproducts to be able to control how those costs from production are absorbed into the relevant byproducts. And a last change I'd like to just touch on briefly is that we are changing our Clever quality solution to allow it to handle container-based quality checks. This means that you now have control of quality testing without the need for lot or serial tracking, and once that's done, we'll also be looking at how we embed the quality process inside of the MES platform. Now, we believe that these show you how much we're invested into our products and the requirements of manufacturers across the world that are using Business Central. And we believe that currently many customers are likely having to find off-system and therefore unauditable workarounds for common manufacturing needs that Business Central alone cannot fulfill. And with that being said, I'd just like to talk a little bit about the partner support and how we can help you onboard your customers with Clever Dynamics solutions. So, firstly, we realise that partnering with us is a big investment for you as well. You have the time needed to learn products, to sell products, and to implement the products. We get it. So if you need help with pre-sales or demos or simply questions, I'd like to just let you know that we have a team of consultants and a support team that are there to help you on the journey. This could be help with a simple product demo where we can run a pre-scripted demo just to show you a taste of what a particular solution can do. But also, we've also helped people to, present the Clever Dynamics solution as part of a full solution walkthrough as well. So, if you need help, come and talk to us. And also, don't sit there believing you need to learn everything about our products before, trying to get that first customer or, totally identifying that the product is a true fit. We're here to help you at the pre-sales stage, but also all the way through to implementation, where if needed, we can help you to help your customers, because we believe that, a smooth onboarding means that we'll be a happy customer, it will be a happy partner, and it will be a rewarding partnership for everybody. In terms of learning, our apps have a user guide for each and every app. And this is on our docs website, which is publicly facing. This means not only you as partners, but your customers can get to the documentation quickly and identify, any gaps in their knowledge. But as well as having the docs, we are currently investing a lot of time to produce videos, which we believe give a richer experience and also a quicker payback. In the space of a couple of minutes, you can learn how to do a new task. And you will see a recent flurry of updates on YouTube from us, and that will continue throughout the year as we go to a more media-based kind of training delivery mechanism. And then we have a partner portal, and historically our partner portal was where you would get, an on-premise version of an app, but actually we're trying to make that richer for you guys as partners. So we're going to be working on marketing material that you can use, but also demo data sets and demo apps that will let you quickly install an app into a demo environment and create demo data and run a scripted presentation with little to no effort. Our goal is essentially to make that pre-sales and training easier for you and for your customers and make you look like the rock stars. We also have full extensibility across our apps because we know that apps are not always a perfect fit. So you're able to look at our source code, identify what you need to do, and make the change. Alongside this, obviously, we are constantly investing in our products and making sure that they're up to date with the latest features of Business Central. So we've got those covered. But we work on the basis that, if we give you the tools you need and you can do the job, then that's a benefit for both of us. So we don't hide source code because that would not fulfill that prophecy. And we also don't believe that the value we have is in the code that can be written. AI can now write code for you, but you've got to have the knowledge and the ideas to use it well. So we work on a trust basis. believing that if you invest in us, we'll invest in you. And it's a win-win recipe that we've tried and tested for many years. So, just wanted to touch on something nobody likes to talk about, but that's the fact that with software, things can go wrong for a variety of reasons. But at Clever Dynamics, we don't really believe in finding out who's to blame, but we work on resolving the problem. So we've got a dedicated support team, and these guys can solve issues that might just be a quick question and a knowledge gap, through to minor fixes, but also to the big headaches. And when it comes to a big headache, it's nice to know that we've got an escalation process that's in place, and that ensures that the nature of the problem will determine who it goes to and how quickly it needs to get there. Essentially, if we've got things that are stopping people from working, then these will regularly be fixed and released outside of a normal schedule. Or if it's something where a workaround exists, then it might be put into the roadmap for the next release. It's really a question of severity to, the speed at which we resolve the issue. But also, something that you can feed through to us are ideas. We love ideas from you as partners and from your customers. Often these things are what people are really wanting out in industry. And essentially, if you provide us an idea and we implement it, well, that's a free upgrade for you and your customer that you can reuse time and time again. Essentially, we love feedback. And with that, I'd just like to open the floor to any questions. And I'd just like to say, if you do have anything that you'd like to ask further, then do feel free to reach out to us and ask. It's what we're here for. Well, obviously, no questions today, so what I'll do is I will just thank you for your time and say that hopefully what you've seen today has been beneficial and opened up, ideas and thoughts of opportunity. And I'll hopefully speak to all of you soon.